So I woke up this morning after about a month of playing this Bach piece, and over the course of that month, I've learned maybe like 60-70% of it. It's all 16th notes in these patterns that maybe the structure of it repeats a little bit, but mostly it feels somewhat random to me because all the fingerings change all the time as it changes keys and stuff. But anyway, I've gone through these times where I've been like, oh, I'm done with this, because I've played it exclusively for a month. I really haven't played anything else, except for, well, not anything worth mentioning anyway. So I practice this. I'm gonna just average it, you know, like a half an hour to an hour each day over the course of a month, and this is where I am. But over that course of time, I have thought about stopping learning this because it's probably a couple leaps beyond what I can actually do. And then I also know from experience, when I've tried to learn things that are too many steps ahead of me, I don't, you know, maybe I can learn it to some extent, but then I don't retain it. It doesn't like absorb into the cells of my body, and then I can't repurpose it in other music. It doesn't come through me in a way. So I mean, that happens a lot. And I think a lot of beginners even who try to just learn something difficult right off the bat and fail, you know, maybe that makes them feel like they can't learn the instrument, but really baby steps are so often helpful. So I have wondered if I should really quit and, of course, embrace the failure. And there are other times where I feel like, well, yeah, I do get somewhat of gratification by just keeping going after this. There is kind of like an addiction to failure in a way. Of course, the big failure would be to let it go completely. But this morning, this is what I really wanted to say. This morning I was texting with my friend Luke, and every now and then I'll just say, hey, what are you practicing? Because, you know, he has directed practice. He's a person that will find something to practice and go for it, something specific. And he's been taking lessons from this guy, Frank Vignola. That I shouldn't say directly from him. I think he's just doing online videos, but he was learning the solo guitar arrangement of Autumn Leaves, and he played it so beautifully, and I almost felt like I never heard Luke play so beautifully, and it inspired me. And he doesn't have that whole song learned either. He just has like the first minute. So he's gonna keep going, and I felt like, well, I guess I'll keep going on this. So, you know, it's inspiring to talk to other people, and sometimes that helps you keep going. And there's really nothing else I want to learn except for this piece right now, except for Autumn Leaves. As soon as I've had my fill with this, I'm learning Autumn Leaves. So I will play this for you. I still struggle with that picking part that I showed last time, getting it up to speed and getting everything to ring clearly, and muting this one string that always accidentally rings out. And I've found a couple cheats along the way that I'll show at the end of the video for any nerds that stick around. Of course, if you stuck around this far, you're probably a guitar nerd or music nerd already. So here we go. Falling apart. that's about as far as I've got. I was hoping I would get it, you know, at my best. I have played it maybe perfectly once or twice, but up to what I know there, but obviously not consistent yet. I find that when in a piece like this, once I stumble or make an error, I can't get back on track. I don't know why that is. I guess your brain gets caught up in the mistake, and I wouldn't say that any mistake I made there, I dwelled on it. It's just something like you just get out of sync. All the pieces, I've always felt like this, I guess, all the pieces need to like line up like dominoes, and if you miss a piece, like the rest of the chain doesn't flow. And I assume other musicians feel that way too. It seems like there's an awful lot riding on every note though, if the whole piece is going to stumble after you have one stumble. So if anybody has advice about that, feel free to chime in. And I don't know, maybe I'll make another video after I learn the end part of this tune. Of course, every time I practice it, I start from the beginning of the song. Almost every time. Of course, I practice this part a lot. It's hard to keep everything ringing out. That was a little bit better, but I still get some of that open string ringing out when I don't mute it correctly. And to my friend Art's point in the last video, finger picking. Of course, this song wasn't written for guitar, but you know, finger picking probably would make this a lot easier. And then there's another spot where I cheat. So it was more towards the end. That's cheating right there. That's cheating. And I'll show you what that section is actually supposed to be played. You're supposed to have 2 octaves. So I'm playing 3 different strings there. These 2 are the same note. And then this is all the way you're supposed to play it. And then that's a real stretch. And then but that sounds cool to end on that stretch. All of those 3 notes ringing out. But it's just so. I've tried some other fingerings of that and I just can't get it, so I end up going. Oh, hopefully I didn't look like too much of a goof trying to play that, but part of learning to play something is figuring out the fingerings, and there's also, you know, there's stuff recommended in the music, but sometimes that doesn't always match with what your natural tendencies might be. Anyway, I'm rambling on here, just keeping it real and catching up with anybody who was interested in the last video so they can see the progress there, and I hope that you all are failing well out there. Take care.